There is one captain of the Real Madrid ship, Florentino Perez, Carlo Ancelotti on the club's president. Real Madrid is the golden standard when it comes to global football. They are the record Champions League winners. They are frequently home to the biggest and most followed personalities in all of sports, and they win everything, always. No matter where a football player starts their career and where they end up playing, no matter how good the team they're playing for is, if they get the opportunity, Real Madrid is where they want to be. Los Blancos owe this to their rich history of success, of course. However, in the modern day and age, what they really owe this to is one man, Florentino Perez, the Kingmaker of Madrid. Florentino Perez is a lot of things. Powerful, larger than life, highly educated, highly functioning, an engineer, a politician, and a serial entrepreneur. As of the time of posting this video, Forbes lists him as the 1,187th richest person in the world with a net worth of $2.8 billion US, which is pretty good. But most notably to the layman, what he's most well known for is being the most successful club president of all time. Over 60 titles at Real Madrid between the football and the basketball teams and counting. In a career with Real Madrid that has spanned over 2 decades now, he's essentially overseen nothing but growth for Los Blancos. But it shouldn't be forgotten that at his core, he is a businessman over anything else. Scandals, questionable transactions, and more have followed him throughout, as one would expect from a man that is chairman of the Super League. A really fascinating case study, one worthy of a deep dive. Hello everyone, truly hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Since 2003, Real Madrid have been either the first or second highest revenue generating club in world football in every season, bar one. They've been first 13 times in that time frame. It's a true reflection of the incredible work that has been done by Perez and his team that this club is in this incredibly privileged position. And all that thanks to a man that came from relatively humble beginnings. Born in 1947 in Madrid, Florentino Perez was one of 5 children. His father was the owner of a few small businesses, such as a local perfumery, but by most accounts, his family were roundabout middle class growing up. By the account of those who grew up around him, he was respectful and liked by almost everyone, but there wasn't anything particularly special about him. It was only in university where he began to shine and his competitive spirit took form. He studied civil engineering at the Technical University of Madrid, and he spent his early career working for the government in various positions. He landed on politics in 1979 and was even elected as a member of the Madrid City Council at one point. However, when the organization he was a part of didn't receive enough votes to be awarded a representative in parliament, he resigned in 1986 and left the world of politics behind. It was at this point that everything changed. 3 years prior, along with a few partners, mostly from his time in politics, Perez purchased failing construction company Padros S.A. for only 1 peseta. Together, they transformed this company into one of the largest and most successful players in the construction game. By 1994, they were the 8th largest public contractor in all of Spain. 3rd by 1996. After a host of mergers and acquisitions over the years, Actividades de Construcción y Servicios, or just ACS Group, was created in 1997. ACS is also active in real estate, telecommunications, and toll highways, amongst very many other segments. In 2023, ACS brought in just over 35 billion euros, operated in 5 continents, and employed over 135,000 people. And Florentino Perez is the chairman and president of the company. He is insanely successful. He has been since the 80s. Maybe even before that. The sheer number of connections and the variety of his career by the time he had gone into entrepreneurship is something that no amount of money can buy. However, as you would expect of someone with a resume like that, many have questioned his motives and the company he keeps. ACS were initially financed through Spanish billionaire bankers and cousins Alberto Corina and Alberto Alcocer, also known as Los Albertos, as well as the Marc family. Los Albertos appeared in the Supreme Court back in 2003 over fraud and racketeering charges. The Marc family are one of the richest family in all of Europe. Juan Marc, the accumulator of the Marc's wealth, was a wildly successful banker and has even been referred to as the Rockefeller of Spain. He was also among the main financiers of dictator Francisco Franco during the Spanish Civil War. In other words, Perez has been playing this game at the highest level possible for many decades. With friends in all the right places, Perez was primed in a position that very few will ever find themselves in. After experimenting with a variety of workspaces over his years, he laid his eyes on an establishment that he's been a fan of his entire life. Florentino Perez has been a fan of Real Madrid as long as he can remember. His father made him and his siblings members from a very young age. And it's easy to forget, but this man is old enough to have watched Santiago Bernabeu himself lead Real Madrid to 5 straight Champions League titles in the 50s. This was the culmination of a life's dream, I'm sure. And he was in a unique position whereby he could effect some truly positive change for the club. Real Madrid is owned and run by its members. It's a non-profit organization focused on sporting output. Members or socios have the opportunity to vote in and stand for elections to determine the club president. 1995 was the first year that Perez decided to throw his hat in the ring for the presidency of Real Madrid. He was one of the favorites in this election too, and even came close, but ultimately finished in second. In 2000, he went at it again. This time, he was successful, despite the fact that the incumbent president Lorenzo Sanz had just seen Madrid lift the Champions League. The club was in 5th place and they had significant problems on the pitch. They were in debt of nearly $300 million. They weren't profitable. Their organization was all over the place on a board and director level. Their model was unsustainable. Perez based his running campaign on the fact that his experience in business was far more useful to the club than any amount of football knowledge ever could be. He promised to turn Real Madrid into a machine, and he very much delivered on that promise. His approach to doing so wasn't exactly novel, but it was effective. It came down to maximizing revenue with the least amount of effort possible and ensuring that on-field results had a minimal influence on off-field results. Manchester United are often credited as the first club to truly understand how much the international market could propel their brand and, in turn, their overall income for the decades to come. In fact, the only year Real Madrid have been outside of the top 2 of the top earning clubs in the world since 2000 was 2016. Madrid were 3rd after winning the Champions League. Manchester United were 1st after coming 5th in the Premier League. For Manchester United, commercial success is no longer tied to sporting success. In 2002, Jose Angel Sanchez, then Real Madrid's general marketing director, echoed this sentiment by comparing Real Madrid to an organization from a completely different sport. We usually exemplify this with the case of Ferrari. After achieving a great reputation as the top brand in F1, they went 21 years without winning a single world championship, but they have always been perceived as the top brand in world motoring. Real Madrid have perfected this model, and they are still winning. So Florentino Perez's strategic approach to flipping Real Madrid on its head was founded fundamentally on 2 broad categories. The first was eliminating the debt through the sale of land and assets, and the second was restructuring the approach and overall strategy of the sporting, marketing, and social segments of the club, all of which bled into one another to form a cohesive package. Let's start with the debt. This was eliminated through the sale of the Ciudad Deportiva, a Real Madrid training facility that was built on the outskirts of Madrid in the early 60s. However, by the time Perez had become president, the facility was no longer on the city's outskirts. As the city expanded, the facility found itself near the center of Madrid, which just so happened to be an upmarket and highly desirable area. Real Madrid was sitting on a gold mine. Now, Perez wasn't some genius, this was well known. The only problem was that the area was zoned for non-commercial purposes. Madrid had tried to push to rezone the area on a few occasions in the 90s, but had failed to do so due to public backlash. In stepped Florentino Perez, with the backing of one of the continent's biggest companies, a history in politics, and near unlimited influence. In the same year he came into office, the rezoning motion was approved. The city of Madrid obtained a portion of the land as part of the procedure, and Real Madrid sold their portion for an estimated sum of 500 million euros. Goodbye debt. They even had money left over to build their current training facility, the Ciudad Real Madrid, opened in 2005 to the cost of 100 million euros. As per The Guardian in 2018, the complex is 40 times bigger than the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium and contains enough dressing rooms to host every La Liga club on the same day. That's not bad. On a sporting level, the mission was quite simple. Number one was to promote the very best talent from La Fabrica, Real Madrid's youth academy, to the first team. Think Raúl or Iker Casillas. And number two was to sign the very best talent from around the world. Think David Beckham, Zinedine Zidane, Roberto Carlos, the list goes on. Madrid have produced some incredible players in the past, so it was assumed that they would just continue to do so from a youth academy level. The second part is a little more bold. When I say the best talent, I don't just mean the best on the field. I mean the best at generating attention. One of the main factors that led people to vote for Florentino Perez en masse was that he promised to sign Luis Figo if he were voted in. Luis Figo was not only the best player on the planet at the time, but he was a Barcelona player. There was a rumor going around at the time that Florentino Perez struck a deal with Figo's agent behind the scenes such that if Perez were to win the election, Figo would consent to the transfer on a high wage package. If Perez were to lose the election, Figo and his agent would still receive hefty compensation. Well, Perez won, and the only thing that Barca could do was watch as Figo had a 62 million euro release clause, the Galacticos policy. Every year, Madrid make one blockbuster signing of a highly recognizable and talented player that has the potential for a significant market impact. The best and most recognizable players often bring their fans with them, fan bases that could encompass entire countries, which is a good tie-in to the social strategy. The social strategy for Madrid included everything related to public image, the integration and care of the socios, and consistent involvement in alleviation of global distress. This means promoting a family-friendly and inclusive environment for the fans and players, consistent communication and transparency regarding sporting decisions, involving themselves in social causes, and supporting charity organizations such as UNICEF. All of this has contributed to Real Madrid having an excellent reputation in the public eye, a brand that absolutely everyone would love to work with and be associated with outside of footballing reasons. With all of this in place, marketing became extremely simple. Real Madrid claimed that they sold 1 million David Beckham shirts in his first year at Madrid and 1.2 million Cristiano Ronaldo shirts in his first year. Both figures account for the city of Madrid alone. Just think of how many people around the world are walking billboards for Siemens or Buin decades after these players signed and left. Sponsors are paying for both the player and the establishment with whom they're associated. Real Madrid were one of the first of the major clubs to tour the globe in efforts to build support for them during pre-seasons. They've seen great success in Arab and Asian regions as a result of this. Having the Galacticos go on tour with them worked heavily in Madrid's favor in those early days. In addition to that, Madrid partnered with local companies within those regions, increasing their overall presence. Signing big players gets Real Madrid a publicity bump, but it also turns these superstars into megastars, driving their sponsor rates through the roof. Real Madrid were also early adopters of an image right sharing model that allowed for them to claim the revenue that was being made off of players within their squad for sponsorship and overall marketing purposes. As of today, that split reportedly sits at around 50-50 for most players, However, they've been known to make exceptions for their megastars. Ronaldo apparently had to fight tooth and nail to get a 60-40 split, and Mbappe apparently was offered an 80-20 split. Regardless, this opened up a whole new revenue stream for the club, and by being the place to be for players, it's continued to be the place to be for fans of not just Real Madrid, but the sport as a whole. It's the Real Madrid experience. The existing stadium facilities were improved. High-quality restaurants and bars were constructed. The stadium touring service was completely revamped, and the advertising space within the stadium was maximized. Merchandise was flying off the shelves in retail outlets and club grounds too. As a result of all of this, the club's commercial revenue went from 38 million euros per season to 125 million euros per season between 2001 and 2006. Overall, the club's revenue rose from 138 million to 292 million in that time frame. By comparison, Manchester United, who were first in 2001, saw an increase on 217 million to 242 million by 2006. Real Madrid's success over the last 2 decades is owed to this man, or at the very least, his presence was the catalyst that made this already historic team bulletproof. He saved them from crises and elevated them to a new stratosphere of sustainable success. However, even the great Kingmaker of Madrid had his limitations. You see, Perez is first and foremost a businessman. He's an engineer at heart, so the way he thinks is through processes and systems. It's very mechanical. However, where he fell short in the past was through the other side of running a business of this nature, the actual football. The Galacticos era of Real Madrid is looked back at with mixed reactions today. A spectacular showing of sporting talent and commercial intent, but a team that failed to live up to and reach their full potential, which says a lot about the expectations of this club because they won the Champions League and 2 La Ligas in those 5 or 6 years. Amongst Perez's questionable decisions was letting Claude Makelele leave Real Madrid for Chelsea in 2003. By the account of several players in the team at the time, and yes, players, not fans, he was the club's best and most important player. Fernando Hierro, Steve McManaman, Zinedine Zidane, they all felt that way. He was the club's defensive midfielder, he was their engine, he made them tick. Yet, Makelele was also arguably the most underappreciated player in that whole squad. The likes of David Beckham, Zidane, and the rest of the team were making up to 5 times more money than him, which further emphasizes how image was put above anything else back then. And when Makelele asked for a raise, it was flat out refused. He went on strike and forced a sale to Chelsea in the summer of 2003. We will not miss Makelele. His technique is average. He lacks the speed and skill to take the ball past opponents, and 90% of his distribution either goes backwards or sideways. He wasn't a header of the ball, and he rarely passed the ball more than 3 meters. Young players will arrive who will cause Makelele to be forgotten. Real Madrid president Florentino Pérez, following the sale of Claude Makelele, Real Madrid did not win a single piece of silverware over the next 3 years. In the same time frame, Makelele won the Premier League with Chelsea twice, as arguably their most important player, and he caused every team in all of England to change how they viewed the defensive midfielder position. Vicente Del Bosque, who had just won the league with Madrid, was also sacked to the surprise of many. Not much is known about this situation, only that it's rumored that there was a split behind closed doors, with players being involved too. Fernando Hierro, captain of the team, also ended up leaving. In 2006, following calls to resign, he stepped down as president to allow for change. 3 years later, he was back. I don't think I need to dwell too much on the exploits of Real Madrid and just how successful they've been in the Perez era, particularly in his second stint that began in 2009. Perez fully stepped back into his roles at his companies between 2006 and 2009, but he was clearly using his time out to reflect on his errors at the club. This time, there was a focus on balance and more of an emphasis on delegating sporting decisions, and the team flourished because of it. If they weren't put up against the greatest team of the 21st century, his first 4 years back would have gone a lot more smoothly. it is what it is. In any case, since 2009, they've had more success in the Champions League than anyone else. No contest. They've seen year-on-year record growth, and they continue to attract and nurture the greatest players on the planet. Here's a chart of Real Madrid's revenue generated per year since Florentino Perez first took over in 2000. It's remarkable. Having said all of that, now that we have all the good stuff out the way, it's time for us to focus our attention outside of football. Like I've said numerous times over this video, Florentino Perez is a businessman above all else. His position at Real Madrid has given him power and visibility like never before. In turn, it's allowed him to strengthen his positions across all other aspects of his life, something that has not gone unnoticed. Something that may pop up in someone's mind after hearing about Perez's long list of achievements at Madrid is, for a club that holds presidential elections every 4 years, this guy's been around for a long time, hasn't he? It's a valid thought. 21 years of Real Madrid presidency over a 24-year period is crazy to think about, and 15 of those have gone uninterrupted. Nobody has even come close to dethroning Perez at the helm of this club. Barely anyone has even ran against him in that time frame. And who wins an election if only one person is running? I'll give you a hint. And it's no secret that a large reason for all of this is because the requirements to run for the position essentially ensure that no one else will feasibly be the Real Madrid president while Perez is alive. Or at the very least, while he continues to want to be Madrid president. Just to qualify to run, you need to have Spanish nationality and have been a member of the club for 20 years. It used to be 10, but was doubled in 2012, 1 year before being elected into his 4th term in office. 20 years is steep. But at the very least, it ensures that any future president is hyper-committed to the club. The real reason no one will oppose this man is that any future president has to also have accumulated enough personal wealth to receive a bank guarantee totaling up to 15% of the annual revenue of the club. In 2021, when Perez was most recently re-elected, that sum came up to roughly 124 million euros. The 15% guarantee has always been in place, dating back to 1990, but in 2012, alterations were made to the rules, with the most significant being that the guarantee had to be endorsed by personal assets. How many people on the planet fit all of those criteria? It's not a very long list, you know, it's more like a single line. But it also begs the question, why go to such lengths to protect this position? In 2009, when he was re-elected, he already ran unopposed. Plus, I think we can all agree that it's likely that nobody else is better equipped to run this club. His position was already secure. However, when you look a little beyond, you begin to see that it's not just his position as the Madrid president he's protecting, it's the leverage he has over the entirety of Europe. The world even. There have been many instances where certain events have happened involving Real Madrid, and coincidentally, one of Perez's companies will win a huge construction project or announce a large transaction. Many have claimed that these deals are interesting, but I also want to be very clear here and note that I have no clue if any of these deals are of an illegal nature, and if it sounds like I'm alluding to that, I'm not. I'm just presenting the facts. The first coincidence that I want to talk about is the project that saved the club and paved the way for the next 2 decades and beyond. The Ciudad Deportiva. During its heyday, the Madrid sports city was a beloved piece of land. The first team trained here, but much of it was open to use by members of the club. There were swimming pools, tennis courts, and much more. From a quick search online, I found a few personal blogs of people reminiscing over how great the space used to be and how it shaped their childhood. And then it was sold. In its place now stand 4 massive towers that overpower the Madrid skyline, ranging from 230 meters to 249 meters tall. Since 2007, these buildings are the 4 tallest buildings in all of Spain. To many from Madrid, these towers are known as the Figo, Zidane, Ronaldo, and Beckham towers, or also the Galacticos towers. I don't think I need to explain why. Florentino Perez's response? What was good for Real Madrid was good for the city of Madrid. Evidently, it was also good for ACS. They won big here too. Contracts that went towards the construction of at least 2 of these towers went the way of Dragados, one of ACS's largest subsidiaries. The presidential box at Real Madrid has also become a hub for international transactions over the years. Either that or it's become the home of coincidence. An example of this was in 2018. River Plate and Boca Juniors were set to face one another in the second leg of the Copa Libertadores. However, the second leg was postponed due to fan violence outside River's Monumental Stadium in Buenos Aires, where the final was supposed to take place. Instead, it was decided that the match would be held at the Santiago Bernabeu in Spain. Even though there was controversy thanks to the fact that the match would not be held in Argentina, the match went smoothly. River Plate ended up winning 3-1 and taking home the trophy. Perez's great relationship with the presidents from both Argentine clubs is said to have secured this event, but maybe there was more to it than that. Perez is also known to have a good relationship with the president of Argentina, Mauricio Macri, another former civil engineer. 2 days before it was announced that the final would be held in the Spanish capital, toll rates on roads leading to Buenos Aires were increased. This was in the midst of an economic crisis for the country as the Argentine peso was being heavily devalued. The rate increase would greatly help certain companies that operated and controlled the tolls, one of which was Abertis, a toll road management company that ACS acquired earlier in the same year. Now, I'm fairly certain that a decision like this takes months of discussion, and I find it hard to believe that a simple decision to host a match in another country could have such a huge impact. But like I said, the timing was fascinating. In 2014, Real Madrid signed James Rodriguez, Colombia's biggest superstar and the star of the 2014 World Cup. He signed for a total value of 60 million euros from Monaco, amidst a huge wave of excitement. Again, perhaps there was more to this deal. A few weeks after the signing was announced, it was also announced that ACS had been awarded and signed a contract to construct a national motorway and a series of tunnels to the value of over 690 million euros in Colombia. When faced with the accusations, Perez said some very interesting things. 35% of ACS's business is in Australia, and there is no Australian in the squad. That's fair, man. On top of all of this, really important players that essentially won La Decima for Madrid the previous year, in Xabi Alonso and Angel Di Maria, were allowed to leave the club, as was Mesut Ozil one season before that. When Perez was asked if he felt that Rodriguez would fit into Ancelotti's 4-3-3 system, he simply said, "I do not know how James plays, but he had a great World Cup, and we wanted him here." Strictly business. In the same year, Real Madrid signed Mexican star Javier Hernandez on loan from Manchester United. Again, only days before this, Cobra, yet another multidisciplinary engineering subsidiary of ACS, was awarded several contracts by Pemex, a Mexican gas and oil company. The contracts entailed the construction of several facilities, including an ultra-low sulfur diesel plant, a wastewater treatment plant, and the refurbishment of a fertilizer production plant. The total worth of the contracts at the time was said to be in the region of $600 million. Again, situations like this are hard to tie to an event like signing a player on a short-term contract. I don't know if I've said it before on the channel, but I have a civil engineering background, and from my own experience with working on large infrastructure projects in the past, these often involve long tendering and evaluation periods which entail multiple requests for information and a lot of back and forth. They could take months, even years. It's hard to imagine the signing of one player is enough to seal the deal, but still, interesting timing. As with every large organization, there are several other accusations that have been laid on the companies of Perez that don't involve Real Madrid, but I've chosen not to include them in this video to not stray too far away from the Real Madrid connection. There are many instances of people claiming he feels Real Madrid as a brand stands above the Spanish government. It gives you some insight into how he views his position as president. Like I said, this isn't some expose or anything, because everything in this video was public knowledge. I just thought it would be interesting to do a deep dive and provide you with the facts. Many believe that Perez represents everything that is wrong with football in a big way. It works like a pyramid. If the big clubs have more money, everyone benefits. That's what he had to say regarding the Super League. I can't imagine he ran that speech past anyone, because there is no way that he thought the general public of financially struggling lovers of a working class sport would find comfort in those words. But at the same time, even if he were to have brought it up, would anyone be ballsy enough to tell him he's wrong? This is very possibly the most powerful man in all of football. His positions across all of his interests have elevated him to a level of power, money, and influence that I don't think any of us will ever truly comprehend. But I'll be damned if anyone thinks he's not good at his job. In the game of football, Florentino Perez has won, and he has never even had to step foot on the pitch. And there we have it. Let me know what you guys think about Florentino Perez and what he's built over at Real Madrid. That's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.